So good morning. I apologize for the delay. Things have been a little bit crazy this morning, as everybody heard about the accident that was on 270. Very unfortunate. But did want to start off talking to you about a couple things that the council has moved forward on, as well as some of the things that we're going to be continuing to take up in the next few weeks. First, I do want to address Clarksburg, the Clarksburg Limited Master Plan Amendment that came before us, which recommended a 15% impervious cap on both the Miles Coppola and Egan properties, and a 6% cap on the Pulte properties. This certainly was seen by many in the community as a compromise. There were folks that had recommended as low as 8% on some of those properties and as high as 35%. And so certainly 15 falls in between that range. I was one, and it's been widely reported, as many of you knew, had supported as the district council member something that I felt would have given a little bit more flexibility to Clarksburg Town Center in terms of relying upon some additional homes as well as possible retail to help support that town center. But nonetheless, moving forward, we will certainly try to do our best to find a solution for the Clarksburg Historic District, which continues to struggle with failing septics. And we are working all of our different options that are out there when it comes to trying to ensure that we do provide sewer, water and sewer to those folks that have for a very long time been suffering. I did just want to say very briefly that when it comes to the environmental community that has touted this as a win, I certainly do agree that we needed to do all that we could to support and protect our environment. I hope that in the future these are not characterized as a win-lose, because there are certainly competing priorities that are important to our community. When it comes to jobs and places for people to live, those are important, as it is important for us to have a sustainable environment. They all are important for us and our constituents, and I think deserve equal voices. When it comes to our zoning rewrite, I think what you saw in the council was a great compromise there as well, in terms of making sure that we didn't make any rash changes in terms of how we are looking or treating properties, but at the same time certainly did our best to make sure that we streamlined the process, made it a little bit easier for people to understand what our zoning codes are in various areas, make sure that those zoning codes were a little bit more cohesive. All of those things, I think, are tremendous wins for us. We also secured what I think was a great discussion with our agricultural community, putting in language that continues to ensure that our farmers have ways in which they can promote agricultural tourism, but at the same point not opening it up to some sort of way for us to go in a different direction beyond just agriculture in our agricultural reserve. And while a lot of that discussion centered around some people who might try and run afoul of the law, I will certainly do my best in working with our stakeholders, as well as Councilmember Elrich, about some of the concerns that he had addressed to make sure that that doesn't happen. But at the same time, we can't stand by and continue to place restrictions on our farmers from promoting and making sure that they can continue to really promote their businesses. That's of our utmost priorities when it comes to protecting our agricultural reserve from pressures of development. Did want to talk a little bit about what's upcoming, our school system budget. We just went through some preliminary approvals in our education committee of some of the CIP funding for both our HVAC systems, as well as planned life assessment, our PLAR, roof replacement, Of course, the sticking point is what's going to happen with new school construction. I did testify in Annapolis alongside the chair of the Prince George's County delegation as well as Baltimore County delegation, along with our county executives and MCPS leaders as well. And it was unfortunate that some chose to see the needs that Montgomery County as well as Baltimore County and Prince George's County espoused to be somehow competing with needs from other rural jurisdictions. Let me be clear that if rural jurisdictions and some of the challenges that they had came forward with a plan, we would certainly be supportive of a plan that they had that addressed some of their needs. But keep in mind, we are the system that continues to grow exponentially to the rate of approximately 2,500 students per year. No other school system can do that, is doing that. And I actually mentioned to Delegate John Bohannon that he has to acknowledge that Montgomery County is unique in that aspect. I understand that there were some comments that were made later on that Montgomery County is not unique in this sense, that there are school systems that are growing, and I do understand that, but they're not growing at the same rate. We have the two largest elementary schools here in Montgomery County, both in Germantown. We continue to see the growth that continues in the Up County as well as other areas, and we'll continue to see that for many, many years. And so I'm hoping that we will be able to come up with a solution in the state that addresses these unique needs that both Montgomery County and some of our other partner jurisdictions are facing. I can't say that strongly enough, that unfortunately, because of some of the budgetary challenges that came through with school construction funding for our schools with the normal formula funding process is the reason why we're in the situation that we're in. And, you know, this is something that, unfortunately, because we haven't gotten the support from the state that we should have over the years, we find ourselves now asking to be kind of brought out of this unique situation that we find ourselves in. And so this is something that I haven't given up on. Many have asked whether or not this is a done deal and whether or not this is over. You know, stranger things have happened in Annapolis, and I think that nothing's ever done until sine die. So we will continue to push. We will continue to be in Annapolis. I know that this Wednesday there's another bill hearing. I know that Delegate Sheila Hickson and Senator Nancy King have put in an additional bill that does provide $20 million in school construction funding just for Montgomery County. And while, again, this is something that might be seen to most as dead on arrival, again, there's a lot of conversation that's going on about why Montgomery County is different, and we need to make sure that our school system is funded from a CIP aspect adequately. And so there's nobody who's questioning the numbers, which is the interesting thing. So if you're not questioning the numbers, then you can't question the impetus nor the need. And so with everybody acknowledging that the need is there needs to be a solution. I did want to talk very briefly about White Oak. We're running into some initial challenges with our White Oak master plan, but we remain committed to our greater White Oak community, that we are going to try and find a solution that allows us to move forward. Again, a lot of the situations we find ourselves in make it so that we have to be a little bit more creative in our thinking. But we still know that what lies at the end is a greater presence for us in the life sciences, seizing the opportunity for seeing that there's a lot of economic development opportunities, as well as delivering to a community that has been waiting far too long for a lot of needed improvements. And so I think that, again, us being responsive to the needs that are being highlighted in the community means that we need to do all we can to try and move this plan forward. And so we will certainly be working with our staff as well as with the elected stakeholders to make sure that we can find a solution that will keep White Oak moving forward. With that, I will open it up to some additional questions, and we can kind of take it from there. Ryan.
Like you said, that you haven't given up hope on a deal for additional school funding.
Mm-hmm.
What's your sense on the obstacles to that, and kind of what do you sense of, if you can put a percentage on it, or how do you feel, what are the chances are that could actually go through?
You know, the 4 years that I was in Annapolis, there were times where I was certain that bills would pass. Everybody said this bill's definitely going to pass, and it comes down to sine die, and it doesn't. And there were times where we had a bill that we thought didn't have a shot of passing, and sure enough, passed through both the House and the Senate on the same day, on the same legislative day, on sine die. So, I mean, those kinds of things happen. And so it really boils down to, again, making your case. And I think that the strongest point that we have is that no one can argue with where we find ourselves. This wasn't a situation that was created by Montgomery County that somehow was Montgomery County's fault. That's not what this is about. This is about understanding and being responsive to the needs of our community. It's not just a Montgomery County community. Montgomery County is a part of the state of Maryland. We are one Maryland. And when it comes to addressing some of the issues that affect one Maryland, this is one of the ones that's at the forefront. Montgomery County is one of the best school systems in the state, if not in the nation. And for us to not address some of the issues that really are affecting the success and efficacy of a #1 school system like Montgomery County is a problem, and it certainly needs to be addressed. You saw that in the letter that was sent by Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown. He and I have had a number of conversations, and in fact, he was at MACO on Wednesday, and that was one of the questions that I asked him, and asked him to take a more visible role. For all of the gubernatorial candidates that are out there, I think that they need to be at the forefront as they go around the state seeking to get support. I think that this needs to be a top issue for Montgomery County voters when it comes to evaluating who they're going to support. I think that there needs to be a commitment from all of our gubernatorial candidates in understanding how important this is to Montgomery County.
What is the opposition? Is that coming mostly from rural jurisdictions, or where
From what I heard in testimony, that certainly was the case, and it was more of the Me Too clause in that we're experiencing challenges as well. And like I said at the beginning, no one's refuting the fact that every school system, I'm sure, has different varied challenges that are affecting them, whether it's declining enrollment and them having to close some schools and combine schools together. I certainly understand that as well. And if they can come up with some sort of a program that works for them, more power to them. And hopefully they'll be able to get the support to make something like that happen. But, I'm elected from Montgomery County to represent Montgomery County's interests and make sure that those are brought to the forefront. And so my job is to not fight against somebody else and what their needs are. And so I would hope that those elected officials that are from other jurisdictions would do the same in respecting the fact that we have problems that need to be addressed. And hopefully they'd be supportive of those just as we are supportive of other jurisdictions that might have challenges that they're facing and have come up with a methodology for how to address them, i.e. Baltimore City.
Why has this issue come up particularly in an election year? Why has it not been dealt with the last few years?
Well, it's a good question, and I think that we've always advocated for more school construction, and it's, I have to give Councilmember Phil Andrews credit. He's been saying this for a very, very long time, and highlighting the fact that continuously we have not been getting the amount of school construction dollars that we should be, just based on how much tax revenue we're sending to Annapolis versus how much we're getting back. But that's been a tenet of the council and the county executive for a very long time, and we've continued to have that conversation. I think that at some point you reach a breaking point, and that's where we are now, which is why this is so important. we've tried to go along as long as we could ourselves, not seeking some sort of other outside remedy. And now we've gotten to that breaking point, which is why this is so important. This isn't something, where Montgomery County, again, like I said, has somehow contributed. We've, in fact, tried to hold the line. We've tried to help the state in understanding that they weren't able to give us all that they could. And now we can't. And so because we can't, we're asking the state to help us. That's all this is. This isn't asking for a handout. This isn't asking for some sort of free money, if you will. This is something where we're asking the state to help us to address a need of one of its largest, or not its largest, the largest school system in the state of Maryland.
Craig, is there something that MCPS could do in terms of managing its own real estate holdings to sort of mitigate or take the edge off this situation while you're still trying to get what you want?
I'm so happy you asked that question, because that's been a question that's been asked in the community. We actually addressed that just this morning in our education committee meeting. I asked both Dr. Starr as well as Mr. James Song and Mr. Bruce Crispell about whether or not we've done a good job of utilizing our existing properties when it comes to addressing some of our school capacity. And in fact, they rattled off a number of different school facilities that we've claimed, and a couple of them that I remember offhand are Loiterman and Arcola, but there are a number of other ones. They're in the teens of existing properties that we've reclaimed to turn into schools. Of course, the leading factor is that the property has to be in areas where we're facing the growth challenges, and so that's the first. But they look at those as a part of their priority number one. Part of the other challenge also, from my understanding in their explanation, is that a lot of times when these older buildings are there, it's cheaper for them to actually tear them down and rebuild than to try and retrofit a lot of these buildings. The existing HVAC systems, ADA compliance issues, the whole nine, make it very difficult. And so in those cases, it's actually cheaper to build a brand new property on flat land than it is to tear something down and then build something back up on that existing site. And a lot of the sites that we own that were older are actually smaller in terms of acreage size, normally 2 to 3 acres. Normally our buildings now are on a 10-acre footprint. And so while we do have a lot of inventory, it's of the smaller inventory, and those are the reasons why those schools were closed in the first place, because they could no longer meet the need. I mean, just think about it. The elementary school that I went to, Belpre Elementary School, I think had about 300, 400 kids. My daughters go to Matsunaga Elementary School that has 1,000. So you can just imagine the difference in footprint size, plus all of the requirements that we have for recreation areas, the things that we're doing regarding linkages to learning and health and wellness centers in our schools. Our school footprints are very, very different from where they were before. And so,
you're satisfied that they're managing their portfolio?
I think so. From the explanation that I just received this morning, because that was a question, I'm satisfied that they are looking at this as a priority when it comes to repurposing those areas. But it's also a contingency plan that's a part of a greater conversation that we're having that embodies boundary changes, that involves public land throughout, that we're actually undertaking as far as inventory goes. Because this is something that could easily affect us as we move forward down the road, because if all the land that we own is too small at some point, where are we going to expand to when it comes to future school sites? Because nobody's building a wall around Montgomery County and saying nobody else come in. And so as these compressions continue, where are we going to grow? Where are we going to get the land, as our public land is that we own is pretty much set? And do we have the right land in the right places? And so it brings about a much larger conversation that I think that is the reason why we're undertaking this study right now, which will be ongoing for a while.
I asked you the election year question a couple minutes ago, but do you think the Montgomery County delegation, I don't think anyone's disputing I'm not asking you whether they're good people or bad people, but do you think that they've done their job right? Do you think that they've done their job to the best of their abilities, or have they not gotten the job done?
Annapolis is a tough place. it's very difficult being one of 141, and even as the largest delegation, it's still very difficult to try and push something forward just yourself. I think that our delegation has done a great job in representing Montgomery County's interests, but it's much larger than us, and it takes, it always takes at least 71 votes to make sure that you're in the majority. And so that means partnering with other jurisdictions. That means making sure that other people are buying into your point. And that gets more difficult if leadership isn't on board. So I would say that our Montgomery County delegation certainly understands and is supportive of the challenges that we face. The question is whether or not leadership is committed to making sure that Montgomery County's interests are at the forefront. And so that's really where the question lies. There's only so much that our delegation can do, knowing the structure of how Annapolis works. And so I know that they're continuing to fight for us to try and put things forward. I mean, you've seen Delegate Kaiser, who put forth the bill. You saw, Delegate Hickson and Senator King put forth another bill. So our delegation is working hard for us to try and make sure that they try and come up with a solution. The challenge is whether or not leadership will allow it to happen.
Couldn't they put bills forward in years past then?
Sure. The question is whether or not they would have had the means to pass. And again, it requires, more. I think that this bill, being that it has the partnership of Prince George's and Baltimore County, certainly speaks to a strategy on how to make sure that a bill has a chance of passing. And so I think that that's where we've seized the opportunity. And I think that it was very smart for them to do what they did in terms of the strategy for this year and how to move it forward. I mean, could you have put a bill in every single year? Certainly. But, whether or not that would have amounted to us actually getting some sort of traction, the question really still lies with leadership.
Craig, on Clarksburg, are you working at all to try and change the outcome of the final vote?
No. The council has spoken. I had individual conversations with members leading up to the vote that we had on Tuesday, and it was very clear that folks were, and the votes were at the 15-15-6. And as council president, it's my job to make sure that I understand where our council is headed as we come up before any of our large votes, and certainly understood that that's where we were. And like I said again, while I might not agree that that was the exact direction for us to go in, I certainly understand that's the will of the body.
In light of the purple tie you're wearing, what do you think about President Obama's budget and putting money towards the purple line in his budget?
I think that it's important. I think that it's important to see that we're supporting mass transit. I think that that's a great direction for us to go in. I'm hopeful that Congress might actually support it. That therein is the much larger question, but I think it's a hurdle that's certainly been overcome when it comes to support of the Purple Line. I can at the same time express my disappointment that the CCT has not risen to the same level of support, especially since we're talking about an area that continues to grow exponentially and has no mass transit access beyond a few ride-on bus routes. And so, we need to do more when it comes to pushing the CCT. It is also our number one priority, our number one transit priority. I appreciate the great work of the T&E committee, as well as the full council that continues to support the Corridor Cities Transitway as our number one priority. But I think that there needs to be a lot more conversation. I was in Annapolis about the special development district taxing authority that we're seeking. And so I'm hopeful that we will find some means of a public-private partnership similar to what they're looking to do for the Purple Line that will allow the CCT to move forward at the same expedient pace.
Old Blair Auditorium on your agenda today?
Yes. So we had a great public hearing and heard a lot of discussion about the Old Blair Auditorium. And when it comes to part of the discussion that we had a little bit earlier about how we handle some of our existing inventory, I think it's important for us to highlight that this is one in which I don't think we did as great of a job as we could in terms of preserving. The Old Blair Auditorium not only has a history. I, of course, graduated from the Old Blair and spent a little bit of time there in our auditorium over the years. And I think it's something that we all see as a public resource and something that we certainly need to support and making sure that we can try and bring it back to being, again, a public resource, because right now it's decrepit and falling apart, and that's not how we should allow any of our public facilities to go into. So I think that we're going to have to try and find a creative solution. It's a very expensive undertaking, but I think that at the same time, the district council member and a number of the council members have expressed interest in trying to make sure that we can revitalize this facility and put it to good use. There's certainly a lot of options that are out there, including renting out this public space, which could recoup some of the cost as far as revamping the site goes. So there's a lot of different ways in which we can tackle this, but I think it certainly deserves a level of priority when it comes to making sure that we can get back to the heyday of that facility, because it really is a gem. Any other questions? Well, folks, thank you again. I really appreciate it, and see you next week. Take care.